Today I am going to show you some basic pipetting and techniques, some of the pipettes that are used most commonly in the clinical laboratory setting, and how they're used, what they're used for, and their appropriate use. I'm a professor here at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. This is one of the things that we teach our freshman level as they enter into our department, just as a skill that is going to be required of them that they are going to need for a lifetime in the profession of clinical laboratory science. One of the first pipettes that we use on a common basis is a serological pipette. And a serological pipette looks just like this, and it is graduated. This happens to be a 10 milliliter pipette. It starts at 0, graduated to 10 down to the bottom of the tip. That means that when you fill the liquid up to the 0 and you dispense all the liquid in the pipette, you are actually dispensing 10 mLs. This next pipette is also a serological pipette. As you can tell, they both have the same skinny shape. However, this is not calibrated to the tip. Again, we have 0, but 10 ends right here at the bottom. It does not go all the way to the tip. So hence, this is called a more pipette. If you dispense more than the 10 ml marking, you're going to get more volume, hence the word more. The next pipette that we use is a volumetric pipette. This pipette is one volume only. You'll notice that it has a number 4 on it. That means that it can only dispense 4 milliliters of liquid. Unlike the serological, that we could dispense anywhere from 0 to 10. If I wanted to dispense 1 ml, I could fill it up to the 0, drop my level to 1, and dispense 1 ml. This I cannot do that with. It is a fixed volume. We use these in different ways. These volumetric pipettes are used for critical measurements. They're used for making up calibrators. They're used for making up controls. Whereas the serological pipette is used for less critical measurements, the actual transferring of liquids into a test tube. Not to say that the measurement is not critical, but to say that it is not as critical as a volumetric, as in controls and calibrators. Also on these pipettes, one thing to notice is that you'll notice at the top of this pipette, it has a frosted ring. That tells us that the last drop of liquid must be forced out of the pipette in order to get the correct volume. The more pipettes do not have a frosted ring because, as I told you earlier, they are not calibrated to the tip. So you have to stop at the 10 ml mark in order to get 10 mLs. If you do force that last drop out of this pipette, you will get more than you want. You'll end up with 11 mLs or 10.9 mLs, which will make a difference in your testing. Another type of pipette that is commonly used is what we call a micropipette, and that's used to deliver small volumes. We have this silver MLA pipette, and just by twisting the top, I can dispense 50, 100, and 200 microliters. It comes with these disposable tips. So I put a tip on. I actually will depress the plunger, put it in the liquid. The liquid gets aspirated into the pipette tip, and then I can dispense it right into my test tube. After I use this pipette tip, I have to take it off and discard it. When we talk about micropipettes, in particular this MLA pipette, it uses something called air displacement, meaning that it uses air in order to aspirate the sample. There are various types of micropipettes. This one has a little plunger at the bottom. This one uses positive displacement, hence the plunger, as opposed to air. And it does not have a tip that gets changed every single time. So in order to use this micropipette, you actually would put it in the liquid, dispense the plunger, let it up. The plunger does the work for you. It sucks up the liquid. You would dispense it into your tube, And then you would have to rinse in a beaker of clean water in order to prevent carryover. Since we don't have a disposable pipette, you would actually rinse this pipette out in a beaker of water to prevent carryover from sample to sample or from reagent to reagent. We also have another type of micropipette that uses the same disposable tips as our MLA pipette. The difference is here is that this volume is 10 to 50 microliters. I can set this just by turning this little dial to 48.9 microliters or 45.5 microliters. So I can be more precise in my measurement as opposed to this MLA pipette where I am stuck with 3 choices. Here I have choices from 10.1 to 49.9 mLs. And this works basically the same way as our silver MLA pipette worked. You're going to just push down the plunger again, put it into your sample, dispense after you've wiped your tip into the test tube, and then discard the tip and go on to the next sample. Another type of micropipette is an Eppendorf pipette, just a different manufacturer, same principle, same air displacement. This one has a dial on it from 10 microliters to 100 microliters, and again I can dial in for 15.9 microliters, 20.1 microliters, however much I want my volume to be. I can just dial it in, much like my green MLA pipette. It uses the same disposable tips, and again you just press the plunger into your sample. It gets aspirated and deposited into your test tube. Again, one-time use only on the tips, so these must be discarded. One of the last types of pipettes that we commonly use in the clinical laboratory is a plastic transfer pipette, and that's just what this is. It is not used for critical measurements at all. It's just used to transfer liquid from one place to another. There are some markings on here for measurements. However, these are not precise. They are not calibrated by a company, and they are not used to measure out reagents, measure out calibrators, or even measure out specimen for that matter. They're just used to transfer from one place to the other. Going back for a second to our volumetric and our serological pipettes, in order to use these, we have to use a pipette bulb. This is what a pipette bulb looks like. And there are various letters on this pipette bulb. The first one up here says A, then there's an S, and then there's an E on the arm. In order to use it, we have to be sure that the bulb is flat. So in order to make sure it's flat, you grab the A, you push in the bulb, and that squeezes all the excess air out of the pipette bulb. The bulb then fits on the top of the pipette, and you're ready to aspirate liquid. Put your pipette into the liquid, and you're going to hit the S on the pipette bulb for suction. And you'll notice that the liquid then comes up into the pipette. In order to get it to the desired level that you want, you would hit the E, which means evacuate. So if I want to dispense 10 mLs, I'm going to bring it up to the 0 mark. Evacuate down to 0. Wipe my tip. And now I can dispense right into my tube. Again, by hitting the E button on my pipette bulb. And because this does have a frosted ring on the top, I do need to blow out the last drop that's here in the pipette. In order to do that, I take the arm that has the E on it and I just gently push it in, and all the liquid comes out of the pipette. When you're done, you just disconnect it, go on to the next pipette.